And we did a load of posters and we delivered them out by hand, and part of these posters was also to engage the community, because there was a short synopsis of the dispute, what it might mean if the Royal Mail Service get privatised. There's also a bit at the bottom that you stick over your letterbox, which says no scab mail here. Do you know what I mean by scab? Yeah, no scab mail here. We support our postage with a sab cap in the middle. Now it's a PDF file, you could send it off and you can cut and paste it, you can mess about with it. It weren't ours, it was our classes. You know, and in fact, I also noticed on the US IWW site, it's on, you know, there's the international section down the side. Unfortunately, as you know, the bourgeoisie have infiltrated the labour organisations in Britain and they pulled the strike. They expressly said they would not pull the strike on the basis of continued negotiations or promise of continued negotiations, and then they did it. And I'll tell you one thing, my postie ain't happy about it at all. But I think there's a big lesson to be learned here. I've sped through it, but a big lesson to be learned, in my opinion, is don't fuck about, get stuck in. All right?
I just want to draw, very quick, 1 minute to draw this together into a few. So the interesting thing about these disputes, first of all, obviously, you know, the crisis and the huge national debt now because of buying the banks out, that's causing privatisation, forcing it through. So there's the struggles going on around that. The interesting struggles about contract labour is very important, because it appears to me now that the weakness of the trade unions is actually leading to new forms of organisation amongst contract workers and wildcat strikes that are spreading across the country. And lastly, I think really importantly is that, you know, the strikes around the turbine factory and all that are actually bringing green activists in it. So what Steve's talking about is there is an attempt now not only to move across factories, you know, outside of the trade unions, but also, more interestingly, that strikes are now being attempted to spread into the community. And I don't want to be too happy, they're tiny little green shoots. That's it.
Okay, just wanted to start by reminding us all about the meaning of the crisis from the point of view of medicine. Actually, I think that used to be the primary meaning, and that was the crisis in a medical setting is when a disease reaches a point when either the patient dies or begins to recover. Okay? And I'd like to talk about the crisis in a special way. I'd like to talk about the crisis of Midnight Notes. And I think that because I think that it's one way of describing this meeting as part of the crisis of Midnight Notes, of whether it recovers and goes on, or it dies. Okay? And I'd like to speak about it in the context of the work that we've been doing since certainly the June of 2008, when, as was pointed out, there was a large meeting of Midnight Notes collective people and friends. And since then, that unit has been the unit by which we've been working, doing research together, creating this huge scroll that put forward a project, an immense project actually, a very ambitious project. And how that story has unfolded in the last basically year and a few months. And I'd like to just put it in the terms of where are we going to go from here, and also what we've learned since June of 2008. Okay? We started off with a very ambitious project of studying the crisis, although technically from the point of view of the media, it had not yet become a crisis until the meltdown of September of 2008. We were obviously picking up intimations of this type of basic and big change in class relations long before. Okay? And in the process, what we were trying to deal with something very important, and we're still dealing with it and struggling with it. And I think today is a decisive turning point in this discussion. Whether the tools, and Malav gave us some of those tools, gave us a list, right? Manifold of work, reading the struggle, self-activity, crisis, enclosures, commons, among class composition, decomposition, recomposition. These were all terms that we've used sometimes, hopefully, some effect, on all sorts of levels. But the question was, were these tools really useful to us? Okay? And the first attempt to really put this to a test, because we need to put it to a test. If these ideas just don't really have it, it's, there are other ideas in this world, and we are creative beings, and we'll come up with new ones. But we wanted to know whether some of this conceptualization that we've been talking about this morning will have an impact. And one basic product that came out of it was promissory notes. Okay, the question that the promissory notes posed was not only were the ideas that Midnight Notes had developed over the years still relevant to deal with the 21st century capitalist crisis, but also whether we could put together a really large group of people. Remember, as I told you, the original idea of the group was that it had to be really small and very tight, unpenetrable, really. Not unpenetrable from the point of view of ideas, but from the point of view of the state. We had this, we needed to break out of that shell, okay? And so the idea was to bring many people we've been working with in a sort of comradely fashion, but sort of outside the circle, and bring them in and see whether we can create, on the basis of an international, basically an intellectual pool of basically anti-capitalist thinking and action, can we bring it together in Midnight Notes and Friends to create an analysis? And this was another test, whether we could actually do it. And in the process, we produced promissory notes. And the promissory notes received a lot of criticism, but also it received a lot of attention too. It's been translated already in many different languages and has gone around militant circles in many continents. So in one sense, it's been a success from a political point of view, but there's also been many criticisms. Part of it having to do with the many voices that have come into this. It's a little bit like the attempt at the Mesa and Zapatista territory in Chiapas, when we were all brought together to put something together. Well, we tried, and promissory notes was that. That was the methodological part of this experiment.